When we purchase a tree at a garden center or nursery, a lot of the time we don't think about all the work and the process that the nurseryman goes through to get that tree to the end product. Well, today we decided to take you through that process and just show you some of the steps that the nurseryman would take to produce a nice tree. So we've come out here to Sunshine Nursery in Clinton, Oklahoma to talk to Steve Bieberich. Hi, Steve.
How you doing?
Welcome back to the program.
Well,
Always learn so much whenever I talk to this man here at his nursery. But Steve, it looks like you've been pretty busy collecting some seeds of some different trees here. So you've got some acorns, and which tree seeds are these we've got right here?
Well, Steve, this is Chinese pistache, Pistachia chinensis, and this particular group of seed came from some trees that originated from the Watson Park in Wichita, Kansas.
Okay.
And the significance of that is that pistache in the wild in China, where it originated, is only really a zone 7 tree and wouldn't be completely cold hardy here in Oklahoma. But over the years, we have introduced this tree, and the weather and natural selection has killed out a lot of them. So the ones that are left are the most cold hardy. So what we've done is taken trees that have at their northern range, which would be in northern Oklahoma or Kansas, and select those as our mother plants to grow our trees from, because they're just about a zone more cold hardy than they actually even in the native stands. So finding the right provenance is really important in growing trees that are really superior quality plants for the landscape. And so it takes quite a bit of searching and research to figure out where to find those.
Where to find the best trees in order to collect the seed.
Right.
And when you use that word provenance, can you just explain a little bit about what that means?
Well, provenance means basically where the tree comes from. And in the case of pistache, we're looking for ones that are in the northern end of the range so that they're more cold hardy. When it comes to certain oaks, for instance, we want ones that come from a high pH soil if we're going to grow that tree in a high pH soil. Okay. So where they are in relationship to where you're going to grow those trees is important, and that's considered the provenance, so that you can pick trees that will be adaptable to the area that you want to use them in.
So you want
where the consumer is going to plant them.
Okay. So you want to collect the seed from trees that are sort of close to home, or
right.
Or at least have conditions.
Yeah, or have or have conditions like where you're going to use the tree in the end, so that you have trees that are really happy in their permanent locations.
Okay.
And so that's really an important part of selecting trees, so that you know where the original germplasm came from.
Okay. A tree growing near Clinton, Oklahoma would definitely produce seed better for trees growing out here than one growing in, say, eastern New Jersey or something like that.
You know, like for instance, our Schumered red oak, we gather our seed between here and Oklahoma City, basically in Caddo and Canadian counties, which have pretty high pH soil and about the type of rainfall that we would see here. And those particular red oak do much better in, say, the Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma area, than if you got Schumered red oak that came from, say, Illinois or Indiana.
Sure.
Even to be the same species, but the ones that are native to our area will do better here.
It'll be more adapted to the heat and the soils. Okay. Go ahead.
We have to go to a lot of trouble to find those extra special trees that you can collect on.
So a good bit of work doing that research. Yeah. And here in Oklahoma, we have some growers, some nurserymen that do pay close attention to the provenance of the trees they grow.
Yeah, we have a number of real good nursery producers here in the state. We're real lucky to have the type of soils and the climate that really lends itself well to nursery production, and we have a lot of good growers and good tree producers and so I really promote Oklahoma grown nursery stock. I think it's certainly the best thing you can have for this area.
A good product. So what kind of seeds do we have here, Steve?
Well, this is a type of plant called Evodia Denelii, which is a Korean form. And these seed have been rubbed on a screen and they haven't been separated out. The little black shiny seed are what we're going to, we'll winnow this later and get the chaff out of it. Has beautiful white flowers along in the summer and then clusters of red seeds. One of the plants that Dr. Snelly at OSU has worked a lot with and really likes this plant. These are Caddo sugar maple. This is the native sugar maple that grows in the Sugar Creek watershed in Canadian and Caddo counties, which has been promoted in Oklahoma for a number of years of being a very drought tolerant and high pH soil tolerant sugar maple. We gather these out of the wild, and the seed will have to be cleaned down and then stratified. And when I mention stratification, that's putting them through what would be like a winter condition where you get them moist and cold over, say, 90 to 120 days, and that breaks the dormancy so that the seeds can germinate. And so we'll keep these in big walk-in coolers. And these are chinkapin oak, Quercus muhlenbergii. These are in the white oak group, and we gather these, and these will have to be dried down and stored till about Thanksgiving, and then we'll start to stratify them, and then they'll be planted in the spring.
Beautiful acres.
Every species of trees has a seed that requires some different mechanisms to clean it, to scarify it, to stratify it, to get it ready to grow. And you just have to kind of learn species by species what's required.
Which seeds take what kind of treatment?
Yeah, there's some. This is Euonymus bungiana that we've just gathered. These will have to be individually taken out of their husk. We get this little red seed here, and then the seed coat will have to be cleaned off of this till it's a nice pearly white.
Got a lot of work to do just to get to the seed of that tree.
And then this has to be stratified and then planted in the spring. Yes, there's a lot of time consumed in just cleaning up your seed, gathering your seed, and preparing it for stratification.
Okay. On the Caddo sugar maple, that's of course the sugar maple is a species that has a native range that extends way far east and north of Oklahoma, but the Caddo species is pretty special. Is that right?
Yeah. What it actually is, you know, everybody's familiar with maple sugar and maple syrup that comes from the sugar maple in the east, and but here in Oklahoma we have a kind of a remnant population of sugar maples that have just wound up in the canyons of Caddo County, down around Red Rock Canyon and the Sugar Creek watershed. And what's significant about it is it's very adapted to life in the plains, where it's hotter, where it's more wind and the drier conditions and higher pH soil. So Caddo is one of those plants that provenance is really important on where it came from. So it's really just a sugar maple that's adapted to western Oklahoma and to Oklahoma in general. And doesn't look a lot different than an eastern sugar maple, but the way it performs is the most important thing.
After it's been out in the landscape, it would look a lot better than one of those eastern sugar maples. Okay, so when we get to this part, there's definitely more cleaning of the seed, and I guess with the Chinese pistache, we still need to do a little work to get those seed ready?
Yeah, almost any seed that has a pulp on it, has a seed coat, like a plum or anything that has a little fleshy seed, that seed coat has to be removed because it has inhibitors that would inhibit the germination of the plant. So we have to clean this off. And for instance, with pistache, we put it on a screen like this, and we have to actually rub it. And it pretty well wears your hand out, but it takes a number of hours to clean up a big batch of seed. And you just continually rub this, and it actually just kind of smashes that seed coat off. And when you get it cleaned up, then it's a nice little brown seed.
Okay.
And if you let this dry on there, it certainly makes it a lot harder to get off. So we actually rub it on the screens, and then we wash it with water, and then float it off, and then you can float the pulp that you've loosened up off. Any of the seed that floats after you get it clean like this, any of it floats, then it's not good seed. Only the seed that sinks to the bottom of your bucket will be the ones that will be the good seed.
Okay.
So we spend a lot of hours just in the fall gathering and cleaning up seed so that we can produce the little baby trees.
And it looks like a pretty messy job there.
Yeah, this is one that you can't hire people to do. I have to do all this myself because they don't particularly like this part of it.
All right.
Then we usually run some water on it, clean it up. And you can see how they're turning more brown. We're getting a lot of the
pale brown, kind of tannish color we got there.
Getting a lot of the seed coat off of them. After we get them rubbed real good, then we'll take them and float off a lot of the pulp, a lot of the immature seeds and the hollow seeds.
The bad seeds. So Steve, these on top are not the seeds or fruit we're going to keep, right?
Yeah, these are the seed that aren't good. These are, we call them floaters, and they usually have hollow embryos. And so after we've rubbed them on the screen, we float them in water. We kind of stir them up here and try to get a lot of the chaff to flow out. And then we actually will pour this out. That gets a lot of the chaff.
Okay.
Then you notice now we have a lot of seed that are much browner. We probably would have to do this again, but you see what we're wanting to wind up with is these nice brown, clean seed.
Okay.
You just repeat this process a number of times until you come out with all nice, clean seed.
Okay, so after this stage, what do we do with the clean seed?
Okay, the clean seed from here is dried. We actually put it in a screen, leave it out to air dry, and then we store it in a walk-in cooler at about 35 degrees until, about Thanksgiving. And then we actually take and we put some moist peat moss in with this seed to keep it moist, and then put it back in the walk-in and keep it until, say, March. And then we plant it in flats and we germinate it. And then the little tree seedlings are pricked out and transplanted into the milk carton, the air root prune system.
Okay, well, let's go take a look at the next step after that.
Okay.
Okay, Steve, so once the seeds have had their cool treatment, what's the next process?
Well, in the spring, along in late February or March, we'd take the seeds out of the coolers that have been moist, cold stratified, and we'd bring them in and we'd fill flats with our media. And then if it was an acorn, I'll use these acorns here. The acorns, we actually would take them and lay them out all facing the same direction.
So you don't stick them in the soil?
No, they just need to be kind of like they would have fallen off the tree.
Okay.
You know, they'd just fall off the tree like so.
Sure.
We actually line them up so that we can kind of come in and check them. Then about every other day, we come in and we look and see how many have germinated. And what will happen is we'll fill flats with these, and then we cover them with a wet burlap bag, and we can look at them. And the little root will come right out of the end of the acorn. And so each day we gather up all the ones that have germinated and take them and transplant them into the milk carton system that I'll show you in just a little bit. Okay. And if it was a seed like, for instance, hawthorn or redbuds, we would take a flat and we would sprinkle the seed out rather lightly. Try not to get them too crowded. If you get them too crowded, they tend to have a little bit more disease problems. We'd fill these flats and spread them out. This is a native hawthorn species. And then I like to cover with just pure vermiculite, coarse vermiculite. We try to cover them just, maybe a quarter of an inch deep. Try to get a nice coverage on them.
So why vermiculite instead of the regular potting mix?
What I've ran into is sometimes the regular potting mixes have a lot of sphagnum peat and things, and they tend to kind of bind up and kind of mat together. So when the seedlings try to come up, it tries to hold them in there. They kind of crust, where the pure vermiculite tends to just kind of be real loose, and it keeps the moisture on there where they germinate. The little root, little cotyledon goes down, and you get a good germination, and a lot of them come up all at the same time.
Okay, it looks like it would help keep the seedlings cleaner without anything splashing up on them.
You don't have that problem. Harlan Hammernick from Bluebird Nursery kind of taught me this, and it's really worked out good. And so with acorns and large seeds, we usually just lay them out, and then these we wait till they come up, and then when they get their true leaves, their first set of true leaves, then we transplant them into the milk cartons. Let's go up and I'll show you what a milk carton crop looks like and how that works.
Okay. So Steve, once those seedlings have germinated, they've got at least 2 true leaves beyond the cotyledons. You prick them out of the flat, and then where do those little trees go?
Well, basically, Steve, we take these after we've germinated them, like you said, and we fill all of our milk carton flats, and that's what these flats are. You know, they actually have
milk cartons.
Little milk cartons in them, and you can kind of see here where the little individual milk cartons are, and we fill basically about 30,000 of those.
Wow.
And put them in flats, and then we bring the little seedlings in and actually prick them out individually and plant them one at a time in these milk carton flats on these wire bottom. And see, these flats have screen mesh bottoms in it.
Okay.
And the reason for that is we want the taproot of the little tree seedling to come out through the wire and into the open, and it actually kills it and prunes that little taproot.
So the milk cartons are bottomless.
Right. I can show you one here with a tree that's already grown in it. Here's a little Chinese pistache, a little seedling, and you can see that it's a bottomless carton. This is just a half of a quart milk carton, and we transplant the little seedlings in there. And this is 1 year's growth. This is a little plant that was planted in there probably in March or April, and here it is October, so it's been in there about 10 months, and it's actually a perfect little liner to go out. And I want to shake one out and show you the reason for the air root pruning.
Okay.
Here's a little pistache that we've taken the milk carton out. Now, kind of watch yourself, and I'll knock the dirt off of it.
That looks so harmful.
Now there's the dirt gone.
Uh-huh.
And I want you to note these wonderful, tiny, feeder, fine roots. These small roots are the ones that take in the water and the nutrients to help the tree to establish and to grow real quickly. So this is what we're looking for. And you'll notice there's no spiraling roots.
Absolutely,
These are all this nice, wonderful little fibrous roots. What this little tree will be is a perfect little liner, and liner is kind of a nursery word for a baby tree that you're going to use to grow onto a bigger size. So we produce about 50,000 of these little trees of all the species that we've talked about to use to grow, sell to other growers, and some we grow on ourselves as little baby liner trees.
So in a round pot, you definitely wouldn't have this much root mass, or it would be kind of tangled and circling.
Yeah, this has been a problem with tree production in pots for years. There's a lot of spiraling roots, and this is some of the work that was pioneered at OSU in developing containers that made a fibrous root system that wasn't spiraling. And
Okay.
OSU was pioneers in developing the milk carton system and a lot of other root pruning type of containers. And we've just gone ahead and used this system. It really works good for us, and it's lended well to our production scheme. And so I think that it makes the best liner you can grow.
Okay, and by utilizing this new growing system, the nursery industry is able to grow different types of trees?
Yeah, correct. You know, in the early days, in the 50s and 60s, when I first started in the nursery business in the mid 60s, there were a lot of species like bur oak and Shumard oak. A lot of the oaks and the real heavy taprooted trees really couldn't be grown and transplanted easily. And it's only since the innovation of the air root pruning and being able to alter the root system and make it more fine and small like this that you could grow a lot of the oak species. So actually now we can grow off bur oak or pecan or walnut basically at about the same speed as we would a maple. And it's enabled us to have a lot, broader based palette of plants than we had, say, 50 years ago.
So that's just a great production breakthrough.
Yes.
Enabling us to grow these different types of trees. So this is 1 year old. After they pretty much fill those milk cartons with roots, what do we do next, Steve?
This is just one of the steps. We take this plant, and I usually go right on into a 1 gallon root pruning container and go for another season to grow it on up to a nice, say, 4 to 5 foot little tree. And let's go down and I'll show you what the 1 gallon step up looks like.
Okay. So Steve, we've kind of sped through time here with our little Chinese pistache seeds, showed the cleaning process, the sowing in the flats, pricked those out, planted the seedlings into those little milk cartons. They grew to about 2 or 3 feet tall their first year. From there, where do they go?
Well, the next step that we do is in the spring, after we've overwintered the little milk carton baby trees, overwintered them in a poly house, then we actually pot them into what we call a 1 gallon root maker container, which is basically kind of a net or a fabric bag. There's many different types. This year I'm using the net bag. Probably next year I'll use a fabric bag. I like both of them, and it depends on the price.
Okay.
And what that does is actually continue the root pruning process and making a nice fibrous root system while letting the tree go ahead and get more height to it and more caliper. We use a system like this, Steve, that's with the net bag. The roots can actually come through this bag, and they get kind of girdled a little bit, which makes them have a swelling on the inside, which stores a lot of carbohydrates and the energy, so this tree can really develop a super root system. We don't get any spiraling. We have a super plant that can go into another nursery field and become a super tree for your yard. The concrete block is basically just there to hold the tree up. Where we have a lot of wind, these plants fit right down into this concrete block, and that just is a way that you can space them any type of spacing you want. And as you can see, the trees have grown up to about a 5-foot width. We've staked them. We've done some top work pruning on them to get them started off to be a nice landscape tree.
Okay.
I want to show you what the root system looks like on these after they've been in this bag one more season. We'll cut one of these off and kind of show you here. You notice that this is lots of little fine fibrous root systems, and you'll see there's no spiraling. This plant's just a solid mass of little feeder roots that's ready to go right into the ground and into another field location. And what we do with these is some of these we go ahead and put into a bigger container. Some we'll put in our own fields and root control field grown bags. Some of these are sold to other nurseries all around the state and parts of Texas and Kansas, and they use these for liners to produce maybe even up to 3 or 4 inch caliper trees and dig them with tree spades or maybe conventionally B&B. And this is just another step of what we call liners. This would be a 1 gallon liner, and there's a lot of these produced in the state of Oklahoma, and I think it's a super plant. And this, by getting them up to this size, it already gets them kind of ready to turn into caliper trees. You know, they already got a nice form, got a straight trunk, and can go right into the field. And within 2 growing seasons, you'll have a 2 to 2.5 inch caliper tree.
I think it's amazing that they've put on so much height, and I guess these are 2-year-olds,
Yes.
two growing seasons.
2 growing seasons
worth of tree.
And these have been cut back a time or two. You'll notice here where we've pruned them, and that's forced some lateral, some branching.
Okay.
And we've come up here and pruned them again, and you'll notice we've got some more branching. And pistache are they're kind of a little ugly duckling tree, and so you have to do a little bit of work to get a nice form to them when they're young.
A little bit of pruning.
And a little bit of pruning. As they grow older, they really fill in our super tree. You know, this was our first Oklahoma proven tree of the year.
Absolutely.
The Chinese pistache.
Yeah, back in '99.
And as more of them are planted around the state, I'm just amazed at how well they do in our part of the world.
Okay, so let's go take a look at the field.
Yeah, let's go
where you
down to the field and we'll show you one more step.
Okay.
All right.
So Steve, here in the field, I guess this is one of the last steps in the process of preparing these trees for the nursery, for the homeowner.
Yeah, this is our little field operation where we take our liners and we take the 1 gallon bags that we just saw, the 1 gallon trees, and we bring these down in the spring and we install them in these root control bags. This is actually a field grown container. This is a fabric container that actually also helps to prune the roots of the tree. As the roots grow through this container, it girdles them just a little bit, makes them be more fibrous inside the bag, and they're much more transplantable. There's more roots held in this container so that when they're put into the landscape, they transplant much better. Okay. And so we bring the little 1 gallon trees, we put the bags in the field, plant them in there, and they're in here 2 seasons to get to this size. So this is a 4-year-old Chinese pistache from seed collected right here in Custer County.
Okay, so Steve, do all nurserymen grow in these bags, or are there other
No, there's a
systems?
lot of other different practices. I have a very kind of a silty soil that's hard to hold a root ball to conventionally grow them by just planting them in the ground. A lot of nurserymen grow just plant my liners, the 1 gallons, right into the soil with no in-ground container, and then they harvest them with a mechanical digger or by hand. So there's many systems that our root prune trees can go into. Okay. I just particularly use this bag because it lends to my soil type the best.
Okay, so it still makes a really nice tree.
Yeah, they transplant very well, and they just have worked real good for us. We really enjoy this system. And the harvesting is much faster. They can be stored in this container until they're ready to be planted out.
Well, these are some nice looking Chinese pistache. I guess you have to do a little bit of training of these trees while they're out here in the field?
Yeah, quite a bit, because Chinese pistache is kind of a little ugly duckling tree. It's a little hard to make it into an attractive tree. So we do a lot a lot of pruning along the way from the time this tree is planted to actually get this nice scaffolding branches. Actually, if you saw the Chinese pistache in China, I saw it when I was over there in '93, and it's really not much of a tree over there. It kind of leans over and kind of a scraggly, kind of a half vine looking thing. And when some Chinese horticulturists came here a few years ago, and I was showing them these trees, and they didn't even really recognize. They said, well, what tree is this?
One of their own trees.
Yeah, it's a tree that's native to their country. And I said, well, this is Chinese pistache. And they really didn't hardly recognize it because we actually turn them into trees. We make them into a tree type, where in China they're much more irregular shaped, and in the wild they don't really have this nice form to them.
Okay.
So it takes quite a bit of pruning. You have to actually do a lot of cutting back to get it to force branches on, so that you have some head to it.
Okay, so quite a great deal of work goes into these trees, just from the seed, all the transplanting, selecting some of the better trees to grow on, and just again continually moving them up into larger pots and staking them out here in the field, and just all this training. Really, quite a bit of work.
Well, that's true, and I think a lot of people don't realize that what's involved in the number of times you have to grade these trees and cull them and select them and prune them to actually come up with a finished product that somebody can put in their landscape and be proud of.
Well, I think they look really good.
Well, thank you, Alfred. I'm glad you guys came by.
One last thing before we leave the field here at Sunshine Nursery. A few weeks ago on our program, we told you about a strain of ball cypress that Steve collects down from the Frio River near Austin, Texas, and how that this strain is more tolerant of alkaline soils. And I guess you can probably tell which of the ball cypress are more tolerant to this location. And Steve, you want to tell us which one's which?
This is another good example of where provenance plays an important part. This is a ball cypress, from eastern Oklahoma, and you can see how chlorotic it is and real yellow, and really doesn't like our high pH soils. To where this is the Frio River strain. You can see these are much darker green. They're growing within 10 feet of the other group, and so that's the type of thing we're looking for, is trees that can tolerate our soils and our conditions. And so the Frio River strain is just by far the best for high pH soils.
Definitely a difference. Well, Steve, I really appreciate the insight and the information on growing these trees.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad you all came out to visit today.
Thank you very much.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.